Welcome back to the show. This is Greg Gadanian. You are listening to Sets and Reps, and I just want to start off by thanking you for stopping by. If you took time out of your day to listen to what I've got going on here, this little project that I'm trying to grow, then you are a real one, and I appreciate you. If you're listening from YouTube, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, leave a like. You can follow me on my Instagram, G Gadanian. That's Gdanian with two G's in the beginning. That's the weirdest last name you probably have ever heard spelled. You can head over to the podcast email, setsandrepspod@gmail.com, and send me topics that you want to hear about on the show. Today's episode, I'm talking with an older friend, actually, that I knew a while ago. Didn't have too much interaction with, and then all of a sudden, a year later, I'm having a pretty significant and impactful conversation with him on my podcast. So that's Jake Ignazuski. He started his own podcast called Iggy Sports Talk, and he tells his story about how he sort of went against the odds in his education system and his family, and made sure he did what made him happy. And we also talk about the importance of creating what makes you happy. We talk also briefly about manifesting and bringing positive energy out into the world. Everything happens for a reason, and how you can go back and look at your life in different situations and find examples of this. And briefly, we'd also talk about social media and how you can use it as a positive tool, and how also it has some negative backlashes. So, without further ado, I'm going to step aside and let this episode play. I hope you enjoy. We got a good one for you today. I want to take a second and give my guest a warm welcome. Mr. Jake Ignazuski, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Greg?
Really good. I went to the chiropractor today, and so I feel a lot taller. That's one thing. And I recorded another podcast this morning, so this is the second one. I'm just feeling good, man. It's my day off.
Good stuff.
Are you at school
Day offs
right
are
now?
always nice.
Absolutely.
I'm not at school. I'm actually back at home. I've been working at Dunkin' Donuts since I've been back at school. So, giving a lot of people coffee, trying to put a smile on their face at the start of the day. Unfortunately, with COVID, usually the whole coffee experience, like people don't realize, like when you work at Dunkin' Donuts, they usually think of, oh, it's a fast food restaurant, like, it stinks, the fast paced sort of environment. But I've worked there for 5 years, and so I have some regular customers and like that sort of stuff. So when I get to see those people, and it makes my day. But when I got the mask on and everything, and when it really takes the whole personal factor out of it, it sort of takes the goodness or the nice part out of the job. You know what I mean?
So you need to do like as much as you can to keep that factor up somehow. I mean, even if it's just moving your eyes in a
Exactly.
positive way. So
It's tough too because now with the mask, like when I'm trying to, like, even like with my coworkers, like if I say something, like I'm a very sarcastic kind of person, not normally, but like if I say something in a joking way and I'm like, what are you doing, like, you kidding me, like, and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, and I'm like, I got a smile on my face under my mask, like I'm just trying to bust your balls because this has been a tough day and I want to, like, put a laugh into the day.
That's such like a pure mentality, and I think that's awesome. Yeah, it's tough because they obviously, like you said, they can't see what's going on underneath. So when I wear mine at work, I have to, like, I sometimes just pull it down when I want to say something, but you never know who's gonna get offended, who's gonna start shunning you. So gotta be really careful with that stuff. So the last,
Exactly. And with customers too, like when you're like, how's your day going or something like that. And you try to be personable and they look at you in like a weird, like with a weird look. And you're like, you don't see what's under the, like, whatever. Okay.
people also need to just kind of lighten up a bit. I know that it's been a tough year, but like the only way that positivity is going to reign is if you kind of make it and you accept it, and it is what it is.
That's the biggest thing, bro, is that people got to realize that you just got to live in the moment. I get it. I 100% get it with all the stresses that's going around in the world right now and just like life in general. But if you just like understand that a second goes by in your journey in this life, every single second of every day, and just try and live in the moment and just understand that and enjoy the people around you, enjoy the experiences around you, instead of getting caught up in all of like the minuscule, oh shoot, I didn't get more than 5 likes on this Instagram post. Oh shoot, this person didn't reply to me on Snapchat. And obviously our minds and our anxieties get in the way of that. But at the same time, if we just have the mindset of just living in the moment, you can enjoy life so much more.
Yeah, I've been on a huge like mindfulness kick, and that's exactly what you're saying, living in the moment. And I also like another thing that you said. I think you said it on your podcast with I don't remember the athlete's name. And you also posted about it several times, but it's that idea that like your success has already happened. Your time just got to catch up with it too. So you got these like these wise sayings and these wise mentalities. So good for you, dude. And it's really it
I
helps.
don't I
Yeah, what were you gonna
appreciate
say?
that, man. I didn't make that stuff up. I didn't make that stuff up. I got it from other people. I started listening to this guy named Charlie Rocket. I'll actually send you the few podcasts that I've listened to him over these past few days in these past few months. But it's just all about manifestation, the law of attraction, and just I started doing this thing every single day just this past week and writing down quantum possibilities. So understanding that if you write down things every single day and you don't say your goals like as just like a plain view of I want to lose 50 pounds or whatever. If you say it like that, who know you're putting in your mindset that it might happen. I might get around to it. But if you write it down and say, I will interview 30 athletes in 2020. I see myself, this is what I'm writing down. I see myself reporting on Nesson for the Red Sox. And if you write down that every single day, and if you have that mindset and start your day off with that, and it can be for anybody, but if you through each day have that in your mind and go through life just with that common goal in your mind, things are going to come up and the universe is going to align in a way to where things will come up. And you might just think that this is hocus pocus. You might just think that this is weird. But actually, I just said this perfect word, hocus pocus. Charlie Rocket brings it up all the time. People when they think about hocus pocus, they think about just magic. But
Right.
hocus pocus is I speak and it will appear. So when you speak what your goal is into existence, they will appear. And this whole mindset of waking up every single day and knowing what you have always dreamed of, it's already happened. It's already done. And if you believe that enough, that time just hasn't caught up yet, each day you're going to work harder and harder to get to that goal. And it's going to happen because you believed that back then.
Dude, you're hyping me up right now. This is crazy. Yeah, exactly. Um, I really want this podcast to be like a motivational thing for people, and it's getting its legs off the floor right now. But this is like crazy stuff. So that's insane. Thank you. I'm gonna start doing
Well,
that.
how I learned it is like yeah, so like how I learned it is like this guy Charlie Rocket is he was 2 Chainz's manager, and he was 300 pounds and he got a brain tumor, and he had won multiple Grammys. He was making $15 million a year as 2 Chainz's manager, and he realized that he wasn't doing what he wanted to do in life and that he wasn't happy, and obviously these different things that he was doing in his life obviously weren't helping him be healthy because, like I said, he was 300 pounds and had a brain tumor. But in 1 year, he said, I am going to run an Ironman. This is a guy at 300 pounds who has a brain tumor said, in 1 year, I'm going to run an Ironman. At 200 pounds, he ran an Ironman. And then 1 year, a year before this all happened, he said, I am going to be a Nike athlete and be in a commercial with Serena Williams and LeBron James in a Nike commercial. 1 year later, he was in a commercial with LeBron James, Serena Williams, and Colin Kaepernick on a Super Bowl commercial, and it was a Nike commercial. You can't just make this stuff up.
You better
can't make it up.
You better send me that podcast like as soon as this is over. That's the guy you're talking about, right? Rocket.
Yeah, I want to say one. I want to say one other thing too.
Yeah.
Like, something that I heard this morning is the law of 62. So I guess he looked and saw. So he had a few artists like before like 2 Chainz and like that sort of stuff, and he explains it all within the podcast. But he said, I looked at how many songs it took for this specific artist with them. I released how many songs did it take until our first hit. For this one group, it took 62. For 2 Chainz, he looked, it took 62 songs for them to get their first hit. Drake, he looked, it was around the number 62, but Drake made around 60 to 65 songs until his first hit. And so it's just all these different things. So if you think about it, Greg, at 65 or 62, whatever amount of podcasts that you make, think about how much more comfortable you'll be. Think about where you'll be. And it's just all about the consistency. For myself, I'm at 40 podcasts right now. Let's think about in 22 podcasts.
And you just started another one.
And where will I be? Right.
You just started another one as well, right? I was listening to that the other day. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just constantly putting in the work every single day to get the results. And it's like all the positive, the manifestation stuff, that's just positive energy that you're giving yourself. And you're not even dwelling on self-doubt and any of that stuff. Like it's everyone experiences that. And I feel like it's something that's it's healthy because it gives you substance as a person. But as long as you practice speaking it into existence, it's gonna happen. That's crazy, man.
Bro, and it gives you energy at the start of the day. It's crazy. I'll also send you this. So for everybody that's listening as well, if you want some great motivation, look up the Colin Kaepernick Super Bowl commercial. Because if you watch that commercial, and that's the commercial that Charlie Rocket was in with LeBron James and Serena Williams. But at the end of the commercial, and I watch this commercial every single day, and it gets me so hyped up and hungry for the day. I look at myself in the mirror when this part comes up. But Colin Kaepernick goes, "Don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough." And if you look at yourself in the mirror and you say that, whew, get ready for a great day, because you're gonna dominate that freaking day, and nobody's ready for what you're gonna do, for real.
That's a sick head rush, my dude. That's awesome. Very good.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a great way to start the day.
Thank you. I know that my listeners are going to appreciate that, and some of my friends that are big on mental health and self-improvement are going to as well. So that's insane. Very good.
I mean, I'm a person who deals with that heavy, bro. I mean, I deal with massive anxiety on a daily basis. I wake up every single morning with a pit in my stomach, with a tight chest, every single day. And so this kinds of stuff, like these like doing meditation in the morning, writing down quantum possibilities, and knowing that those things will happen at some point, and not trying to overthink when exactly they will happen, and trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to make those things happen, and believing, it takes all the worry out of it. And then just the whole concept, like we talked about earlier, about just living in the moment and not trying to overcomplicate everything. Because I mean, it's so easy to just say live in the moment, but 15 minutes ago I was just freaking out about something so minuscule that like now just like thinking it over, like why was I overthinking about that? Like why wasn't I just living in the moment and just allowing things to happen?
Exactly. It's like it's not gonna. You're okay in the spot where you're at. Like your body's good. You know, even if you're thinking about something, it's just a thought. It's just a pattern in your brain. Like you can move on to the next thing that you're working on, and it's all gonna be okay. So, absolutely.
Because it all centers around the main idea of everything happens for a reason. There's a reason we're talking right now. So funny enough, let's even go a little bit deeper. There's a reason why I asked you, Greg, for help in training at Hampshire Hills, and there's a reason why a year and a half later we're on a podcast together and talking about this deep stuff. And I try to put that into my every single day. And there's so many situations that happen that I just need to take a step back and think everything happens for a reason. And there's a lot of times too where my anxiety is like, no, screw that thought. Like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? But if you just think, even if something bad happens, there's a reason why this happened, and it's preparing me for another situation or another experience that could put me in this similar situation. But because I went through something earlier that I was freaking out about, that situation strengthened me for the future.
Yeah, dude. I I can't remember if I know we had one session together, and I think that did we get a workout? I think we had a consultation.
Yeah, so
And
I'm gonna tell the story right now because
all right,
I just went all the way back. And what's funny is that
that's
I
how
had
I
a lot of
wanted to
anxiety
start this
about going
off.
up to you as well.
Okay.
It's funny because I remember I was working out and I had like an issue with my shoulder, and you know I was just anxious about asking for help. I was just anxious about you know going up to somebody that I had never met before. And I was leaving the gym, and then I walked back. I'm like, nah, I gotta see if I can set up an appointment. Because I know I saw you working there like multiple times. I'm like, this kid definitely knows more than I do. Like, might as well as ask somebody who knows not. And, yeah, I remember we set something up. We did like a training session, and then I had to go back to school, and then we were trying to set something up again, but then obviously
Shut
Hampshire
down.
Hills had their whole issue. But it's just funny how like just from that moment, that's the reason why we're here right now.
Never would I have thought, never would I have expected that we would, be here in this kind of new format. And it's
Exactly.
after the way that you're representing it, it just makes me appreciate it so much more. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I mean, it happened for a reason.
What's going on with your shoulder now? Is it I know you were doing exercises to strengthen, rehab it. Is that completely
Hmm.
healed at this point? Are you still experiencing any issues because of it? Just wanted to check in.
Yeah, so every single day I still got to I still do band stuff, just because my posture has always been so bad. And I noticed a lot of times, like even when I'm like sitting here like doing a podcast, like I'll go like this. Like when you just brought up my shoulder, I just like went back like this, and I had to pinch my shoulders in my back, because I'm like, oh shoot, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what my posture is actually supposed to be. But yeah, luckily my college offered some free PT, so I went there and did that for a few weeks. But then obviously COVID hit, and you would laugh at this. We had to do a virtual PT, and they were trying to measure stuff on my back through the camera, and they had like a whole app for it and everything. And I'm like, how is this gonna work? Like, what is going on right now? They're like, can you figure out how to tape yourself? And I'm like, listen, if I couldn't tape myself back at the PT place, what makes you think I'm gonna be able to tape myself on Zoom? Like,
You said it was free PT. Is that like, was it a work study program of like students in that?
Yeah, I'm pretty
That's
sure it was a
awesome.
I think it was a work study program. Yeah, I was
That's
very
really
lucky.
that's really cool. Yeah, it's cool that they offered something like that. It's Plymouth State, right?
Yeah, and so I remember I was with two people, and so they had one person who was like 2 years older than this other person, and so it's kind of like a mentor program. So it was pretty cool.
Very nice. And that's where your podcast kind of started, right? I know it was a radio show. I'm not quite sure, like that's, just the essence of the word. Did you start that with
Right.
friends that you knew that were kind of into the same thing?
So I can tell the story real quick because it's kind of interesting. But I started off at Plymouth State being a business and sales major, and I had really no intention whatsoever about working in sports, talking about sports as a job. I had always dreamed of it when I was growing up. I would always look at Don Orsillo from the Red Sox, and I would always say to my parents, it'd be incredible to do what he does. And then it just sort of got into the whole conversation with my parents and I of the conversation that every single kid has with their parents. What job is going to make you money? What job is going to make you financially secure? And so I went into college with a business degree because business was going to make me financially secure. Did I understand what I wanted to do in business? No, I had no clue. I knew I was good communicating with people and I liked marketing. So I tried that for 2 years. And then I remember I was trying to do an internship going into my junior year. That was really important to me because I wanted to start getting experience within the business industry. And I went to one of my advisors and I was talking to him and was pretty much saying, I'm really into business. I like communications. I like marketing. I work at Dunkin' Donuts, and that's the only reason why I know that I'm good at communicating with people. uh, and
Let's
I
start
said,
somewhere.
I have no clue. Right? Yeah, exactly. I have no clue where I want to go within the business industry. And like I was looking up marketing internships, like it's so broad, like so broad. Like I could do a freaking marketing internship for like a paint company, like so boring. But he said to me, he's like, so what do you like to do? Like, what do you like to talk about? And I said, well, I love sports. I said, anytime somebody comes through the drive-through at Dunkin' Donuts and they're wearing like a Raiders hat, I say, oh, what's been your thoughts on John Gruden so far? Like, are you happy with Derek Carr? Like, I always try to spike up a conversation with people, and it's funny enough that something actually happened a few days ago at Dunkin' Donuts. Like, I was wearing a Celtics sweatshirt and a hat. I'm like, oh, have you been seeing how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been going off? Like, I can't wait until Kemba Walker comes back. And he goes, oh, I actually don't watch him. He's like, who are you talking about? And I'm like, the team that you're wearing on your hat and your sweatshirt. And he goes, his face goes beet red. He's like, my bad, bro. I got kids. And I go, all right, okay. But like most of the time, like I do get into some good conversations.
That's actually funny that you bring that up because um, this podcast is going to be interesting because obviously, like, that's your job. Like, um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my close circle of friends. I'm the one that follows sports and like watches sports the least. So, like,
Oh, really?
my perspective is almost gonna be like childlike in that way. So I feel like I would do something like
Mm-hmm.
that guy. I watched the Bruins and I followed them for a while, and so I would, I had a sweatshirt at the time that I would wear around, and even though I watched them, I still wouldn't necessarily follow them closely enough to be able to like sustain a conversation about the players
Right.
specifically by their names and stuff like that. But Yeah,
it is interesting having conversations with what people like me call you as casual fans. Well, you're like a casual fan, but there's like casual fans. Like there's people who like act like they know what they're talking about, but they don't really know what they're talking about. And this happens so much in school. Like there's so many times in college where, because in the sports management department, like there's so many times where like people are talking about things and I just like have to like bite my tongue, or like I just want to speak up, but I'm like, Jake, shut up. Like you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Like they don't care. Like they don't care.
that's healthy though. Like, that just goes to show how much you care about what you're doing, and you obviously you're very passionate about your work. I can see that just from the episodes that you put out, the videos that you make. You've got your Instagram that you do videos like it seems like every other day or every day, something like that. You've got your podcast, and you have like shorter, like 10-minute videos that you do, kind of just like breaking news type things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just remembered I didn't finish the rest of my story. So
Oh,
so yeah, I was talking to my advisor about like internship or whatever. And I remember I had no clue. I had like zero clue. And it was like 2 a.m. and I had like an epiphany. And I was like, it'd be really cool to work for like Bleacher Report, because they're the app, they're like the sports news app that I always get all my sports news from. I'm like, waking up every single day and being able to talk about sports, that'd be pretty incredible. And it just got to a point where, and your listeners will kind of resonate with this, of just sort of forgetting about really what makes my parents happy and what what they want me to do instead of what makes me happy, and sort of throwing the money component out of it. Obviously, having somewhere in my head, I got to make some sort of money to be able to support myself within this. But at the same time, within sports, like you're not going to become a millionaire your first job. Like you're going to make like $30,000 like in your first job a year, but you got to build your way up. And so just to know that like I'm right here and to build myself up, like that gives me massive motivation. But I was actually like, after I figured that out, I remember I was in statistics class, I was in business stats, I was supposed to be listening but I wasn't, and I was looking at the major requirements for sports management. And right after that statistics class, I changed my major from business administration to sports management. And I remember my mom is like, "What the hell is sports management? Like, what can you do in that?" And I said, "Well, it's honestly the business major in sports. So it's exactly what I was doing before, but it was sports." And I always remember this because this always gets me so motivated in the morning. But my advisor goes, "I want to let you know that because as a junior, you're changing your major, you're going to be very behind everybody else. There's a good chance you might not graduate on time. In terms of jobs, you're sort of at the bottom of the list because you don't have any connections right now. And it's going to be very difficult for you because you don't have any experience right now." I said, I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can, but watch me. Give me 1 year and you'll see. And Plymouth State had no department whatsoever for like they have an athletic communications department, but like journalism, like broadcasting, like they only have one person do play by play for every single sports team. And there's no like real like massive department. Like so many schools have like a station. Like UNH has like a station.
yeah.
Like Keene State has like a station. You can like be an anchor on it and stuff. Um, and so the only way that I could get experience is by making my own experience. So that's what I did with Iggy Sports Talk.
And you talked about Bleacher Report. Is that's still kind of in your
Mhm.
radar, right? You still got your tunnel vision on that?
So Bleacher Report is a little bit more of like writing stories and that sort of stuff. And now that like I've obviously been in the industry a little bit, I understand more of like the opportunities that are within that company. Um, right now, my all-time dream is to I would love to work for MLB Network and have a show on MLB Network, or just talk about baseball every single day. That'd be amazing. But if I was able to, right now, like my in the immediate future, I'm so invested and interested in social media. I'm fascinated by understanding how I can get you, a person who does not watch sports too often, to, when you're scrolling, to stop for 2 seconds and engage in my content. I find that so fascinating. And so I try so many different methods oh, this doesn't work, let me try something else. Oh, this doesn't work, let me try something else. And I'm just so interested in just figuring that out and trying to help out other companies do it, because it's very interesting, because so many of these companies think they know social media, but they really don't know social media. Like you can post a picture like you post on Facebook, but is it going to get likes? Is it going to help out your company? No, if you don't know what you're doing, no, it won't.
So you have to like have more of an interaction with your audience, right? I mean, you're after this conversation, you're gonna have like a ton of insights, I'm sure. Uh, that's a crazy way to look at it. It's almost like you're disseminating what it, people's attention, which is like attention is a
Exactly.
serious energy, like what you focus on. So using that in a positive way to market yourself and promote what you're trying to do, because it's a lot better than some of the other stuff that people are posting and some of the stuff that people are like scrolling through. So
I mean, believe me, if I showed you, and this is for everything, if if you start something, it's and you look at it a year later, your mind is going to be blown about how much you improved and how much you learned within that 1 year. Because me posting what I first ever posted on my Instagram account, it's laughable. It's hysterical now, and I cringe at it. I'm like, wow, I posted that, and I thought that that was good. But you learn things, you meet people, you experience things. And it's even with like a podcast, it's with a job, it's with any new thing that you start. There's going to be there's going to be steps, or there's going to be there's baby steps within it. There's going to be a trial run where you have to figure out, sort of, putting yourself, making it your own. Because so many times we look at other people, we try to emulate other people, and that's great. That works good for them. But there's a lot of times where people aren't going to want to engage in your stuff, or really want to watch your stuff, if you're not being yourself. And so, like, especially with kind of like what you're doing with your podcast, it takes a little bit to find your voice. It takes a little bit to find you.
exactly, you can emulate what you want to for a certain extent, but that's it. At the end of the day, it's gonna eventually, once I figure it out, it's gonna be me, and that's very exciting to me. I have um, a marker board up in my room, and I have something written. It says, "I hate
Hmm.
I hate what I release, because that that just means I'm improving, or something like that." And I think that my first
Right.
guest that I had on this podcast, he's a music producer that's kind of like in the same mindset field that you and I are talking about right now, and that was something that he put on his Snapchat
Exactly.
story or something like that. So it's just the same idea, and I just thought it was super profound.
I
So
mean, it's something where I used to put out these graphics for like my podcast, and I would spend hours on these graphics. And I remember one of my friends who does something very similar that I do showed me this app called Canva, where you can literally have a template, and you can literally make the same exact thing that I was making in 2 hours in literally 5 minutes. And when I figured this out, it obviously completely changed the amount of content I was able to develop and produce. But at the same time, like, you like with like editing and with everything, you know, the more that you practice, the more that you do, you're going to learn new things, you're going to get better at it. And you're not even going to think about it. And like when you look back, because Greg, after you do this for like a year, you got to look back at your first podcast, because you're going to be really impressed with yourself. Because what our minds like to do is we don't like to stop and understand and look at ourselves improving, because we look at ourselves as having to be the best of the best, be perfection, and we set ourselves at such a high standard. But if we just take a step back and look where we started and where we are today, your mind will be blown, and it'll put a huge smile on your face, and it'll honestly, without all the views, without anything, it'll make this worth it, because it'll make you proud of yourself, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, it's like your legacy almost, like how you impacted the world, and and how what that is like how it makes you feel, that warm feeling inside. It's it keeps you motivated to do better and supersede what you did, you know? Like even talking to you right
It
now, it makes
happens.
sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say it happens to me all the time with views, and it's so much. It happens so much on social media with just people in general. You're like, oh, why did that person get 1,000 views and I only got 10? And you try to micromanage in your mind why that happened, and like you did something wrong. And I just got to a point where it used to motivate me. I used to see that and want to pump out more content, and just think, well, because I'm not pumping out as much content as these people, I'm not getting as much views. Or because I'm doing something wrong, like there's a reason why people aren't watching my stuff. But at the same time, I got to a point where I'm just happy enough that one singular person took a second out of their day to just listen to something that I worked my butt off to put out. That's all that really matters to me. And that's something that I always say when people come up to me, and like even yourself, like you said that you listen to one of my podcasts, like it means it honestly puts a huge smile on my face that you took a second out of your day to look up Iggy Sports Talk or look up Jake Iggy, and click through all those different things to listen to this annoying voice. But but I say that to people all the time, and because they say, they're like, oh, you know, I checked it out. It means the world to me, because you could have been checking out millions of other people. You could have been doing something else, but you don't understand how much work I put into this, and it just makes it all worth it.
That's the literal contrast. I'm seeing like a literal contrast between mindsets. It's like watching for views, watching for likes, and being disappointed about not getting enough of them versus just being thankful that one person decided to take a look at it. And so I think that the former the former of those two options is the much better, much healthier place to be. And it's that positive energy, that positive, you know, just it putting yourself in a good spot, honestly.
Exactly. It makes it a whole competition thing when it doesn't need to be a competition. And it's something, at least for myself, because I try to use this podcast and this brand to help propel my personal brand in the job market.
Mm-hmm.
But I always get in my head about you know, oh, because I only have 800 something followers, like a company is not going to want to even engage in me. And it's funny because you hear the word that I said before, and we say these words without even understanding that we said them. Only 800. I'm lucky I even have one. I'm lucky that I even have one person listening or watching my content. But we put in our minds, because we see these people with 1,000, we see these people with 10,000, and those people are thinking the same thing that I am. They're having the same mindset that I am. Well, why am I not getting 100,000? And then you just start feeding yourself into those numbers. And it happens so much, and I try to eliminate that as much as I can, but it happens so much with just like doing this kinds of stuff. But it is, as long as you're happy with what you're doing, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's almost sometimes it'll be almost like an impulsive reaction. It's something in our nature maybe that wants to be competitive. I said it this morning when I was recording my other podcast that a classmate of mine said something like, you can't always control your first impulse or thought or reaction, but you can always control the second one. And so if you're putting yourself in that second or that positive spot right away, it's gonna cancel out the impulse that you first had. So I have 18 subscribers on YouTube, and I love every single one of you. How about that?
Exactly, man. That's all that matters. Because I mean those 18 people took the time to press that subscribe button. And honestly, like it happened like when I post an Instagram post or I post like a TikTok, I'm like, why does that not have more views? And I try and figure out why. And like it's unfortunate because, and that's one of the biggest things that I want to focus on, not only just with like my sports brand or anything like that, just like in life, is to be an advocate for people for mental health, because people don't really understand how much worse mental health is going to get over these next few years, because we understand what it's like to grow up in the social media world. Like we grew up at the start of it. Think about growing up in it. I don't know if you've watched the Netflix documentary Social Dilemma.
I started it.
It's mind blowing.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's mind blowing about how much social media controls our mind, and it got to a point where, and I urge all your listeners to do this, if this gives them anxiety, because Snapchat used to give me massive anxiety. Just the whole thought of, oh, are they going to Snapchat me back? And if somebody doesn't Snapchat you back for a while, you're like, oh, why didn't they Snapchat me back? Or if they leave you on red, you're like, why are they ignoring me? And it would always gives me massive anxiety, and it would also be a huge distractor. But what I started to do is I for the last month, I have no notifications from Snapchat. I look at Snapchat when I want to look at Snapchat. If I want to look at Snapchat, I'll look it up. Like I'll see if I have notifications. But if there's nothing, if I don't want to, or if I don't have it in my mind, it's not going to happen, and doesn't give me anxiety.
I want to ask you about this because I took like a week off, or I just like logged out of my Instagram account for like a week. Doesn't seem like a long time, but like it's like the first thing I woke up in the morning, I would check Instagram, so like and this was like right before I started the podcast too. And I did that so that I could take a break from all the things that were sucking me in. But I find that social media is a good tool to promote things, like to promote the podcast, for example. So
1000%.
What do you think about using it as a positive tool for that without the negative repercussions, or being able to balance both of those?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and it's gotten to a point. It's so stupid. It's gotten to a point where I was really thinking about just unfollowing everybody, and only following the people that I honestly really care about. A random girl from Plymouth State. Do I care seeing you in a bikini? It's nice to look at, but do I care looking at it? Like, is it going to make my day better? No, it's not going to make my day better. And I got to a point where I was talking to one of my friends about this, and the reason why, and that's the reason why I said it's so stupid, because I said to him, I'm like, I'm just gonna unfollow everybody and only follow people that like I really care about, and start following all these mindfulness, like positive sort of Instagram accounts. So when I look on my feed, I'm looking at positive stuff, like I'm looking at stuff that is going to uplift me. And he goes, Well, you know, people get really upset when you unfollow them, right? And it got to who cares? Who cares if I press that follow? Like, are we going to not be friends after I click that unfollow button? If that's the case, why am I even talking to you in the first place if you care that much?
Exactly. They have apps so you can see like who unfollowed you and stuff, and I think that
Exactly.
helps you build and harbor resentment for sure, and just nothing else.
Exactly. Well, because I also I mean I struggle with it as well, and I went on a I urge you to do this too because it was the highlight of my 2020, but there wasn't too many highlights in it to start with. But it really took me out of the small bubble of Amherst and Milford and made me understand uh, really what life is outside of New England. Because you know, you can go to Florida, you can go to California, you can go to Dominican Republic, Punta Cana, whatever. You can go to all these different vacation places, go there for a week with your family, and you know, it's oh, this look at the palm trees. But I mean, you're not going to understand what life is outside of your little bubble from like a 4 week trip to Florida. And I went on a 2 week trip with some friends, and it was a 2 week road trip where we like camped in different states, and this was right in the middle of the BLM protests. And that stuff was giving me massive anxiety. I just couldn't look on social media. I was just in, I, I, I was just, I was, I had no faith in society at that point, and so I just needed to get
Dude,
away, and
yeah,
yeah, I just
I
needed to
don't
get
blame you.
away, and so yeah, exactly. I went on I went on a 2 week road trip. My friends and I went to 12 different states, um, and we camped everywhere we went, and we made our own food. Obviously, we made our own food for breakfast and dinner. Um, but to drive through the Ohioan hills, same with Pennsylvania, and to drive through the roads of West Virginia and see these random small tiny houses on the side of the road, and then there's nothing else for miles, and just to see all these different areas. You know, like I said, we went to 12 different states, or we drove through 12 different states. So really got I didn't get like the full spectrum. Like I didn't see like people sleeping on the ground and then went to like freaking Beverly Hills. But I got a pretty good sense of at least on the east side what it looks like outside of the bubble. But it just and during that time I took a 2 week social media break. Everything was gone. Everything. And it sucked because the one thing that sucked me back in is Cam Newton signed to the Patriots, and I got that notification, and it was
And
like
you
the
were just like,
second to last day of the freaking road trip. Exactly, bro. I was texting people on who to come on the podcast, and I had to tell my friends to take my phone away. I'm like, listen, I'm already starting to plan out the next week for Iggy Sports Talk. Like, I was trying to get away from this. Like, I just want to live in the moment. I just want to enjoy like the times, like that I'm in. But that trip gave me a much better sense for people, for society, um, gave me a much better understanding that we all, and this is so simple, but nobody really understands it and is able to grasp the fact that we are all products of where we grew up and the people that we grew up with. And so people say that all the time, and you can look at a very plain view, minuscule view if you want to, but there's a reason why there's somebody that might not be as motivated to go to college as for somebody like myself. I grew up with two loving parents in a very privileged town, and kind of I didn't have everything handed to me, but at the same time, like I didn't struggle. Like I didn't go through any trials and tribulations. But for some people who maybe have a drug addict parent or don't have a certain parent in their life, and maybe that parent doesn't give them really any motivation. Do you think that they're going to have any motivation in life? They definitely they might. Like who knows? Like this is very broad, but there's a good chance that, like, if their parents don't push them and instill motivation to go to college, they probably won't go to college unless they're pushed to. And that's very broad, but because I and it stinks that I have to, and super anxious that people are gonna read super into this, and they're that's just how, like, society is now. Like
Yeah.
it's like the cancel culture. You know, they had to take a magnifying glass and try to find something wrong with it. But what I'm saying, I'm trying to make it as plain as equal playing field I possibly can. Um, but I just, like, figured out that concept when I was on that road trip, and it was very beneficial. But the whole concept with just social media, of, like, my anxiety stems from being good enough, and that stems from social media. Like, if I don't get more than a certain number of likes that put in my head, I'm going to get anxious, because why did I not get those amount of likes that I put in my head? Is there a reason? Am I not good enough? And that's just what social media puts. And same with the whole image part of it. Like, I remember growing up in high school when social media first came out, I had a lot of girlfriends that had issues with comparing themselves to, like, Instagram models and, like, that sort of stuff. And as a boyfriend, what are you gonna say? Like, obviously, are you gonna be as, like, oh, you're gorgeous, like, don't worry, like, don't look at them, like, you're as amazing as you are. But it's tough, because in your mind you don't think so.
And they're not necessarily gonna be hearing what you're saying because they can't focus on anything except what's in front of them, what they see, what that
Exactly.
negative suckage vacuum. It's a vacuum, dude. So
And I just want to be some sort of advocate, like, throughout my life for mental health, because it's going to get so much worse. And these kids growing up on TikTok, where they're just consumed in that, and instead of going out and playing in the neighborhood with their friends and playing, like, Foursquare, like, they're playing it on their phone, like, inside. And I sound like a parent right now, like, get off the video games and go outside and play with your friends. But, like, it's the reality of it. You're ruining your childhood. You can be on your phone for the rest of your life when you have a job.
and it helps them build communication skills, meeting people, and going out of their comfort zone too. So
Yep.
it's a sad state of affairs, but it almost makes me want to, like, this is probably something that you're thinking about or something that other people are thinking about too, but it's like using TikTok or platforms like that to like transfigure what's going on with the younger generation and help them out somehow. But it's like,
Right.
the question is how.
It's funny. It's funny. I was thinking about this a few days ago, because I was thinking about that how. And we don't think about it or realize it when our minds mature, or when we look at things a little bit deeper. But if you told me when I was 16, 17 years old to put down my phone and to stop looking at social media, I'd get pissed. Be like, what are you talking about? I'm allowed to do whatever I want. Like, like it's funny, because now that we think about it now at 22 years old, telling these kids to put their phones away and not look at social media as much, who do we sound like? Our parents. And if I told a kid that, they're not going to listen to me, because they don't think I know enough. And something that I heard on a podcast, that is so interesting, is now with social media and the internet, everybody thinks that they are an expert on everything. When
Yeah.
you try to debate with somebody who has decades and decades more of experience with you, but no, I got this phone that says this. I got the source right here. This is the website. Who cares? I lived it. I'm not saying I have, but, like, that happens so much and people don't realize it.
Yeah, dude, That's crazy. It's like you're not gonna look up symptoms of something and try to downplay what a doctor is telling you. WebMD and shit like that. Like,
Exactly.
uh, so
It's sad where social media is, but I'm excited to work in it. But
because you
I'm
can be
excited to
that.
work in the sports part of it. I'm not excited to work in exactly.
Yeah, you can be that positive change, and you can help
Exactly.
move it forward to where it's going to be going.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
So we kind of this episode went to like it turned out very good. Like, it's not like how I saw that it was going to go, and that's like a really good thing. I want to dial it back in to you and what you're working on,
Absolutely.
and I wanted to just, because we're both college students right now, we're both working towards our degree.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
do you have an idea of how many hours that you're spending on your craft here per week? Does the amount of time you spend working on it, like, does that matter to you? Like
No,
between editing,
it makes me
between,
happy.
yeah, and how
Doesn't
can
matter
you?
to me. My mom brings this up all the time. She's like, aren't you spending too much on this? I said, listen, after I get out of work, I go and do this stuff. And this is my decompression sort of stuff. Like, obviously, like if I'm editing for like an hour and then I do a podcast and then I do more, like obviously I get tired out. Like obviously it gets to a point where like it gets annoying. It gets to a point where it's like I don't want to do that.
I hope
And like
so.
that's what's
Yeah.
nice about like being being my own boss is that like if I want to post, I can post. But I'm very diligent on myself. Like if a notification comes up to where like a sports thing happens, like an hour later, like I'll be in my head, why haven't you posted something about that yet? You realize that you are like losing the opportunity to get the story out as quickly as possible. You're like losing the opportunity to get the amount of views that you could have. Like that's what comes up in my head. And so like sometimes I'm like it doesn't matter like if I post something or not. But like in certain situations, I do like to get stuff out at certain times, to because I know that it probably will get more views than other times.
Mm.
But I can kind of make my schedule when I want to. But I'm not saying that I don't get in my own head about it. I'm my own critic a lot of the time. Like if I didn't do a podcast this week, all the next week I'd be like, all right, a podcast has to happen this week because you didn't do it last week. Like it has to.
It's funny because I didn't see anything yet that you posted. Maybe you did and I missed it. Um, I didn't see anything yet about last night's game. And one of the other things I wanted to do on this podcast is kind of have you talk to me about your opinions. I had it on. I had some friends over and we were playing Risk, the board game for world domination, and we had the
Hmm.
game up in the background. And again, this is me with my 6 or 7 other boys back home that all love it and they're all following it very closely. And I'm like, I'm close to the computer and I'm turning and I'm watching and I see like, the Browns are up 20 uh, to 0 at that point. And I'm like, wow, like the Steelers aren't doing so great. Um, was that game
Hmm.
like, in your opinion, and was that game disappointing for you, or are you more of a Browns fan? Um, talk
I
to me
was
about your
excited for the
thoughts about that
Browns.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, I was excited for the Browns. I actually used to be a really big Browns fan when they sucked. Um, Funny enough, I started being a Browns fan when we're 1-15, and then the next season they were 0-16. So I was the fan. Well, so it's funny. I'm so fascinated in rebuilds, understanding where a team is awful and starting to like them at that point, and like watching their progression to being really good. But once they get good, I stop, because that's when the bandwagoners come in. Like that's when other people start liking them. Like it's fun for me when nobody else likes them and I'm the only one who does. And then at the end, like when they do get to the point that I said that they're going to get, I'm like, haha, I told you I was right. And so with the Browns, after their own 16 season, the Browns had 2 first-round picks in the top 5 picks, and they had over $110 million in cap space, and that was $30 million more than any other team had.
What does that mean, cap
And
space?
I said to my friends, I'm like, so cap space every single year, and this is every single sport other than the MLB. The MLB does not have a cap space, and I'll explain that after. But every single year, the Players Association, so the Players Union, and the owners agree on a number to where no team can spend more or can have a salary of more than that.
Okay.
And so, like, if like, so there's multiple teams that like know that they're going to be over the salary cap, like at the start of the season. So that's why a lot of times you see like these super popular players traded out of nowhere, and you're like, are those people stupid? No, they're just trying to align with the rules and save money, because they noticed that that they're $15 million over the cap space, and they have to pay that person $25 million. So since they traded that person, now they have $10 million more dollars left that they can spend. And so with the MLB, it's interesting because there's no salary cap, but there's a luxury tax. So there's a number that the owners and the players union agrees on, and if you go over that number twice, you get taxed. And so like it goes, like they tax you a certain percentage like on the revenue that you made during that year. And so you obviously saw that Mookie Betts got traded to the Dodgers this past year. Now everybody thinks that the Red Sox were stupid for trading Mookie Betts. Why did they trade the best player in Boston? Well, because it was going to be for the 3rd year in a row that the Red Sox were going to be over the luxury tax. So the MLB would have taxed them 50% on their funds. That's crazy. And so to not have that happen, they had to trade Mookie Betts and David Price, because David Price had $31 million that he was owed. Mookie Betts had $27 million that he was owed. So with both of those contracts combined, the Red Sox were massively under the luxury tax and could do whatever they wanted to. And so that's something that nobody really realizes. And so I was a huge believer in them trading Mookie Betts, because I thought that was the only way that they could get under the luxury tax. And if they didn't do that, the amount of funds that the Red Sox would have had years down the line would have massively minimized. So there's a little lesson for salary cap. But
It's expensive. It's expensive to
have you ever heard of that
play. No, dude. That's crazy. So
yeah,
that must have been, that's a very important decision that was made. And I mean, does it, like,
right.
if people are upset about it,
And
like,
so the Browns having in one season having $110 million in cap space, like that's unheard of. Like that's like they could honestly, like let's say they signed they could sign 5 $20 million contracts. That's what that is right there. And 20 people who get paid $20 million, they're usually some of the best players in the league.
now I get it. That's crazy. That's important. Wow.
I'm so fascinated by the whole money part of it as well.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times where when people pay big money, I'm like, oh, it'd be interesting to see how that turns out 5 years later. And then 5 years later, all everybody is talking about is, oh, that was a stupid contract. Why did we pay him that much money? But especially in baseball, this happens so much to where a guy who like is valued at or should get around like $10 million, a team signs him for 1 year, $2 million. And as a fan, at least for me, I appreciate that more than anything. Like if a team is as smart as that to see a guy that should be getting paid $10 million, but they're only paying him two, that's a massive steal, massive steal. They just got him for 80%. And so, going back to the Browns and Steelers, I couldn't believe that they were that good, especially in the first half. They have never in their history of being a franchise scored, or ever this season did they score, excuse me. I just hyped that up so much, ever in their franchise history. But no, only this season they had never, in the first half, in the first quarter, they had never scored more than 21 points this season. But especially against the Steelers were 11-0 to start the season. And it was very surprising. And it's funny too, because karma always comes up to hurt people, because Juju Smith-Schuster, one of the top wide receivers for the Steelers, said, when asked, oh, are you nervous about the Browns? He goes, oh, the Browns are the Browns. How does that look after you just got smacked on national television?
Everything happens for a reason.
Exactly,
It's
bro.
like you said.
Exactly, bro. And those fans have been hurting for a very, very long time. And that's the biggest reason why I really started to like them a lot, because, you know, how many quarterbacks has New England had in the last 20 years? Two. They've only had two quarterbacks in the last 20 years. The Cleveland Browns, I'm going to get this number wrong because it changes all the time. But they have had over 25 in the last 20 years quarterbacks. It's crazy. And so, like, this team has never been able to, like, believe in their quarterback. And obviously we know the quarterback is like one of the only ways that a team is successful in the NFL. And so it's just been awful for that team. It's been awful.
I was trying to Google it, but I'm just gonna stop. I'm not gonna ever be as good as Jamie Vernon on Joe Rogan's podcast, like Googling stuff just for spur of the moment. But I can dream. It's just like you said, you know.
It's funny that you brought up too. It's funny that you brought up too that you didn't see that I posted anything about it, because I get to a point during certain moments where I just put all that stuff away. Like, I just want to enjoy the game. And that's actually the number one thing that I was told when I first changed my major. Is my advisor goes, I want you to understand something. A lot of people who get into sports, they get so consumed with it that it sort of takes the magic out of it. That it sort of takes the fun out of watching sports. And the only reason why I love sports so much is because for sports fans, and I notice it in myself all the time, the passion and the relaxation that sports gives people is unlike anything else in life. And for myself, here's a perfect example. I was watching on TV a player who got drafted by this team, and he went back to this team after like not playing there for like 3 years. And he stood there, got a standing ovation, tipped his cap. And I was watching that moment with tears coming down my eyes, because I could feel the passion. I could feel the magnitude of the moment, because I understood where the situation that this guy was in. He just came back to his home, honestly. Like these sports stadiums are these people's homes for a certain extent of the time throughout the season. And just the passion that those fans are encapsulating in that moment like just by just like cheering them on is something like none other. And even when I talk about like the Red Sox, I get so passionate about the Red Sox because I'm just obsessed, and all I want for them to do is win.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of Boston's kind of like home for like us, like this. It's our area, so
Exactly.
100% get that. It's community. It's like it's bringing everyone together. Um, I honestly can't, even though I'm a little bit on the outside of it. I just personally I can't think of anything either that just has exactly what you were saying. So much passion and so much relaxation, and then just unity together as sports fans, and then that nothing
I mean, you
really
could be walking
exists.
on the side of the road and say, "Yo, did you just see that David Ortiz home run to a random stranger?" And you and this random stranger could get in this whole thing of, bro, that was crazy. Oh my God. Like that was nuts. And then just start talking about the Red Sox for hours. Actually, funny enough, yeah, I'm gonna tell this quick story. So and this is the perfect thing of everything happens for a reason.
Mm.
Is I was in college last year, and I was walking to my friend's house, and I just moved into my new college house, and I was walking down the street, and my neighbor was sitting on his step, and he was wearing a Ravens shirt. He was wearing a Raven shirt. I said, "Oh, how do you think Lamar's been doing so far this year?" Just from that one question, I talked to that kid for 20 minutes outside about the Ravens in the NFL. And then he goes, "You want to come in?" He's like, "Want to meet everybody else?" I like walk in, bro. I'm there talking football with these people for a total of an hour.
And
Like,
this
just we
random
talked about like almost every single team. We talked about
is
just
it
these
his
random
home?
people. And like at the end, yeah, bro, I hadn't even gotten their names. And at the end, I'm like, "Guys, it's been great talking to you, but I just realized an hour went by and I got to go and meet my boy," when I told him that I was going to be there an hour ago. And I'm like, "By the way, my name's Jake. Nice to meet you guys."
That's crazy. It's like an aura.
Seriously.
It's an aura that you guys that you share now, and it's just a memory that you share with those people. Like you probably don't even like did you know
Funny enough, he was my first guest on my radio show.
there you go.
There we go.
Everything happens
Everything
for a
happens for a
reason.
reason.
Good stuff.
Exactly.
Well, I want to kind of I want to go over one last thing that severely like has intrigued me
Absolutely.
about sports. And given my fitness background as well, I wanted to do more research on this. But if you think about times in history when players have used like this is almost like this is a weird kind of side dive off into a completely different aspect of what we've been talking about, but performance enhancing drugs in the history of sports, specifically thinking of baseball, because that is the one that you are so passionate about. Um, I want to kind of talk a little bit about that. Is there anything that comes to mind right off the bat when you hear of that topic? Um, I know I read a little bit about Mark McGuire. I believe he's like the first
Mm-hmm.
one that kind of admitted that he was using andro, and that's a pro hormone, um, serum or whatever you want to call it, that kind of improved his
Yeah.
performance. And that was in 1998.
So in baseball, yeah, in baseball, it's been happening since the 80s. Funny enough, Jose Canseco was the first ever person to take steroids, and it's crazy when you look at the comparisons between when Barry Bonds started in the league and when he ended in the league. It's jaw dropping. It's unreal. Um, with steroids in baseball, it's something where I'm a very big advocate for those specific people or specific people who did take steroids to be in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame.
Mm.
Because he took steroids is not sole singular 100% reason that he hit over 700 home runs. He had to have a good swing. He needed to be a good ball player. He needed to make contact. He needed to know he needed to have the ability to hit the pitch. You know, it's not like with the Houston Astros scandal where he knew what pitch it was and he was ready for the pitch. If he knew that and he was taking steroids, no, you're cheating 100%. That you just defeated the competitiveness in the game. But with steroids, you're still going to have a good swing, still going to be able to hit the baseball. Granted, when you hit the baseball, it goes astronomically further than it does when you don't take steroids. But at the same time, it's something where I also didn't grow up within it either. You know, when I started really watching sports and especially baseball was like 2006, 2007. And so like really watching it, like, you know, I would throw on a Red Sox, like I would know David Ortiz, but like I wasn't like super invested in it. But like if I grew up in like the 90s and like that sort of stuff, I might have like I started watching in like the 90s, I would have probably a different perspective on it. But just in the sense of how much skill you need to be able to hit a home run and how much skill you need to be able to play Major League Baseball, I don't think that steroids 100% correlates to you dominating the league.
Right, because it's certainly gonna make your chances of knocking it out way higher than the other person. But it's like you're saying, you need to have the work ethic, and you need to be, um, you need to have the foundation there. And it's similar to, and I don't want to talk too much about this because it's not necessarily like something that I've looked into severely yet, but it's similar to like, steroid usage in bodybuilding. Like, you know, some people don't even respect a bodybuilder if they know that they're taking steroids, because they immediately write it off as, um, fake, or just like not and like health benefits aside, or I'm sorry, not benefits, health risks and everything associated aside, they just write it off instantly without taking into consideration the fact that those people still need to tear their muscle fibers to build them up. They still need to spend hours in the gym and also be eating to fuel their body, which is now accelerated by whatever they're putting in their system. So it's the same idea. Do you?
I think people get a misconception because of the first word, performance enhancing. So they hear that and they're like, oh, so they're cheating. That's just the first thought of it.
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel about the?
But I think with baseball, say what you're gonna say.
So I was just gonna, we can continue. I was just gonna ask how you felt about the treatment program that they made after, because I think they made the joint drug prevention and treatment program. Was that after Barry Bonds? Do you know anything about that?
I believe so. I don't know too much about it, but
Okay.
I know what you're talking about, and I remember during this whole thing, because it got to a point where like I watched a documentary about Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, and it's just like I didn't enjoy watching it. Like I enjoy watching baseball. Like you knew once they got that tiny crack of the bat, you knew it was going to be over the wall. You knew it was going to be gone. So it just took the whole competitiveness out of it. And because a home run nowadays, even though statistically there's more home runs hit ever there's more home runs hit ever that has been tracked ever since baseball has started. And that's why there's an investigation. There's been investigations talked about like that there's something wrong with the baseballs, that there's rubber balls within the baseballs. There's a lot of conspiracy theories, but just in terms of steroids, you know, there's a guy named Nelson Cruz who I remember. I forget the exact year that he got docked for taking steroids, but I remember the year before. I remember he hit like 3 home runs in a World Series game. I remember he hit like 6 home runs in a total World Series, and he was one of the biggest reasons why the Texas Rangers got there. But most of the time, when a guy takes steroids, let's say he hits 40 home runs, when he usually hits 10 home runs on a regular season. He hits 10 home runs on a regular season. He hits 40 home runs. Then he usually goes, after he stops taking steroids, dips right back down to like 5 home runs. And it's something where there's a guy named Nelson Cruz who, you know, he was hitting 30 home runs, 40 home runs every single year. And you would have thought he would have dipped. I'm pretty sure he got caught in his early 30s for steroids. Greg, he's 40 years old right now, and he hits 30 home runs every single season. And so for some people, it drastically affects them. But for others, you just got to have the utmost respect for them because that's pure talent. But it's something where with the records, with the Hall of Fame, like I said, Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame. Those people worked their butts off to achieve what they achieved. And it's something where even with the performance enhancing part of it, I understand that. And they definitely wouldn't have got as far as they did if they didn't do that. But they had to do it. And also, with that era, it's not like everybody else wasn't doing it. The pitchers that Barry Bonds was hitting off of was taking steroids too. So,
Yeah. So I mean, it's just they're just overlooking so many different factors. Do you feel like that's an unpopular opinion, what you're saying about Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame, or do other people agree with you?
I think it goes either way.
Yeah.
Like I said at the start, I definitely have this sort of mindset and opinion from when I grew up and when I started watching baseball. Who knows? Talking to somebody who grew up in that era, but with me, that's just something that I've always, because I remember I used to ask about it, and he just always said, he's like, well, you see how complicated it is, the swing stuff that we're doing. Like these techniques are like not like preschool stuff. And so like if you look at Barry Bonds' swing, Barry Bonds is a textbook swing. And that's the reason why he hit the ball the way he did.
Mm.
But steroids helped him hit it from what would have been 380 feet to 440 feet. Obviously drastic, but still, like it helps a lot. And you also heard a lot of people during this era, they used to see people who were doing these, and the contracts, the fame, the name recognition that these people got from these steroids. And so they took because they're like, oh, that person's making $20 million from this little from injecting something into his arm or having a specific cream. If I just got to put this cream on and it gets me $15 million more, why not? Who cares about the legacy? Who cares about baseball? You know, if this cream is going to give me more money, why not?
It's all about the cream. Money rules the world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude. Well, awesome. I wanted to ask you one thing. If you could pick, obviously you're in your career right now. You know, if you could pick any, well, actually two questions. If you could pick any era, right, um, to announce sports for or report on any era, what's one that you would pick? That's my first question.
The early 2000s. I think the
Okay.
early 2000s, like before, like, because I was alive when the Red Sox won in 2004, but do I understand the magnitude of what it was like to win a World Series after not winning one for 86 years? No. And so to be able, and also just like there was obviously social media wasn't a factor, and it was just so much more about the game. And I feel like now, and I bet you see it all the time, like nobody's excited about baseball. Nobody regularly talks about baseball. Like everybody loved baseball back in the early 2000s. Baseball was the best. Baseball was America's game. And to be able to go back and report then would be really cool, because it was just so much more exciting. When a certain team won, people would talk about it after. And now, like when a baseball team wins, like baseball fans and some scattered sports fans talk about it, but nobody really cares.
Well, hopefully, for your sake and for others that feel the same, it gets to a point. It's hard to tell what things are going to be like now. Everyone's so uncertain, but hopefully something like that
Right.
happens again, because I'm sure that was insane. And to tie in,
Do you know why the reason why is? Do you know what the reason is for why baseball isn't as popular? Because none of the players really, other than Trevor Bauer and one other guy, really promotes themselves. Like when LeBron says something, or LeBron's not a good example. Like if Paul George or Russell Westbrook says something, you're gonna hear about it, even if you don't follow basketball or not. You're gonna hear about it. But if Dustin Pedroia says something, nobody's going to hear about it. Like and the NFL and the NBA, like there's so much media coverage around it, and all those players have a social presence, and people look up to them. And also the shoe factor is huge as well. You know, people wear their shoes when they wear Kyrie's, like they think that they're Kyrie. And for baseball, there's just not that personal factor to where you're able to really connect with the players like I feel like you can with the NBA and the NFL.
is that due to their own kind of avoidance? Like, how do you? What's your take on that? Like, the reasoning for
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Teams don't applaud it. Teams don't really stress it, and it's just the whole. There's so many people outside of, because like not what not a lot of people understand is people under 25 like don't fully understand the magnitude and the possibilities and the opportunities within social media. They're just like, oh, I post on Facebook every once in a while, and then people like I update my people, I update my friends, and I can like if I want to, but people don't understand the marketing factor of it. And like now with the digital world, like if you are not on social media, nobody is going to have any idea who you are. Like if you want to go off the map, just don't have social media. It's as easy as that. And it's something where with baseball, obviously the speed of the game, the way the game's played, uh, doesn't really attract the very quick-minded and we want it now sort of mentality of society. And so for a person to wait 3 hours, 9 innings to figure out an outcome when they can watch, well, football's 3 hours, but when they can watch something else and get instant gratification.
Or they can just look at the highlights later, right? Same
Exactly.
type of deal.
Exactly.
Yeah, same type of idea. If you were to interview, whether it be on your podcast or some other medium in the future, interview any athlete from history, or even like get to, I guess it's kind of like whether it's a reporter or announcer from history or an athlete. If you were to pick one individual um, of that prowess in history, who do you believe that you would pick? Like basically, if you were to go out to dinner with someone or interview them.
Right. So I think it'd be, I mean, obviously the easy answer is Tom Brady, but for somebody that like I would really care about and really, it's not like I don't care about Tom, but somebody that I would be super excited about to, and that I've always dreamed of talking to is the guy right next to me, Dustin Pedroia. I looked up to Dustin Pedroia all throughout my baseball career. Um, I was always told I was too small. I actually did not make my middle school team because I was too small. And Dustin Pedroia was 5'11" coming into the league. People are like, can he even pick up a baseball bat if he's that short? And just the grit, the passion that Pedroia put into not every single game, every single pitch, every single play. He played it like it was his last. And just like even when his team got out, even when the Red Sox got out, he would jump in the air and be like, let's go, and then run off the field. Just to have that passion, I loved it. And that's why I tried to emulate on the baseball field as well, because I also played second base too. So I sort of looked at myself as him, and used the motivation and the drive that he had. And I use the same thing with this sports talk stuff, because like I said with the story at the start of the podcast, my advisor doubted me. She said that I wasn't going to be able to do it. Same thing happened in baseball. And I was luckily able to make the JV team, got called up to varsity, won a championship with my high school. And I just used that motivation of that I used in baseball now with this stuff, because you're always going to have doubters. You're always going to have people tell you that you can't do it. And as long as you believe that you can do it and you wake up every single day knowing that you can do it, that is all that matters. And if it makes you happy and it puts a smile on your face, who cares what anybody else thinks? Who cares what anybody else says? Because you are happy, and that is the only reason that honestly you're alive, is to smile, be happy, enjoy the people around you, and enjoy this beautiful earth. That's all that matters.
Woo-wee. Well, if that's any way to sum up what we came here to talk about and discuss, that's it right there. Like yourself is what matters, like as long as you do it for you, because like you said, there's always going to be haters, but as long as you do it for you, all that other stuff, all of it falls in line eventually once they see that you care about you, and you are the one that's gonna do it for you. That's all that matters. Exactly, dude. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Exactly. Yep.
Very well spoken. This has been such
Appreciate
a
it, my man.
stimulating conversation, and I'm just very grateful again that you came on to spend the time with my little podcast, dude. So I really appreciate you so much, and I wish you all the best of luck, all the positive energy that I can possibly give. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, my man. I appreciate you having me on, for real.
So Iggy Sports Talk is the name of the podcast. Where can you find that?
You can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I post the video version on my YouTube as well. But like Greg said at the start of this conversation, I post regularly on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok almost every single day, just different sports content.
And it's cool. It comes up right away when you type in Iggy, because it's just a unique name word. It's awesome.
Appreciate it.
That's good stuff.
For your listeners, my full name is Jake Ignazuski. So if you understood anything of that gibberish that just came out of my mouth of the 11 letters that is my last name, that's why I use Iggy. It's easy.
It was easy, dude. That's good. That's perfect. Jake Easy.
Exactly.
All right, well, go blow up my man's pages, and yes, thank you. I definitely want to have you on here again in the future. This was insane. We're
definitely, my man.
Keep working your way up, man. Stay on the path. All right. Blessings. All right. Thank you again so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.
Appreciate it.